The guilt maze, why your mind keeps replaying what went wrong. Have you ever found yourself, in the middle of the night, mentally replaying that conversation that didn't go the way you wanted? Or going over old decisions that, looking back now, seem like mistakes? You try to distract yourself, keep your mind busy with other things, but suddenly, there it is again. That same thought, like a repetitive, nagging echo, pulling you right back to the past. Why does this happen? The first step to understanding this cycle is recognizing that your brain isn't doing this to torture you. On the contrary, your mind actually has a positive intention behind this behavior. It's trying to learn, to find explanations, to come up with strategies so you don't make the same mistakes again. But the problem is that this error analysis mechanism can easily spiral out of control. Psychologists call this mental rumination. It's the process where you repeatedly revisit the same negative events, searching for meaning, justification, or retroactive solution, even though deep down you know the past is unchangeable. This rumination creates an emotional loop. You think about what went wrong, you feel guilt or sadness, your brain, now on high alert, tries to solve the issue, you think about what went wrong again, you feel even more guilt. And so the cycle continues. It's like being trapped in an emotional maze, walking in circles, believing that with one more turn you'll find the exit. But it never comes. Because, contrary to what it feels like, the answer you're looking for isn't in the past, it's in how you're processing the past in the present. Another factor that feeds this cycle is emotional perfectionism. That inner voice telling you that you should have been better, faster, smarter, more careful. You judge yourself with today's eyes, using the knowledge and emotions you have now to criticize decisions you made back then, with completely different resources and feelings. And of course, in this internal judgment, you always end up losing. There's also the impact of negative emotional memory. Our brain has a natural bias towards remembering mistakes and pain more vividly than our successes. This comes from a survival instinct, an evolutionary attempt to protect us from future danger. But in modern life, this mechanism often turns into an emotional trap. How many times have you missed out on enjoying a present moment because you were stuck in these past-focused thoughts? How many plans, how many opportunities for happiness have been overshadowed because your mind kept dragging you back to what went wrong? It's important to understand, you're not alone in this. Many people live trapped in this cycle, believing they'll only be able to move forward once they fully understand what happened. But the truth is, in many cases, relief only comes when you accept that not all answers are available. And that it's okay not to have control over the past. The good news is, there is a way out of this maze. And it's not about fighting the thoughts, it's about changing the way you relate to them. In the next parts of this series, you'll learn practical and emotional strategies to interrupt this cycle, reconnect with the present, and regain your inner peace. We'll talk about how to restructure your thinking patterns, how to build new mental habits, and how to turn painful lessons into fuel for your personal growth. Because you deserve to live a life where the past is just a memory, not a prison. How negative thoughts gain strength, the cycle of emotional repetition. Now that you understand why your mind keeps revisiting what went wrong, let's go deeper. How exactly do these negative thoughts gain so much power? Why, even though you know it's useless to suffer over something that's already in the past, do you still feel trapped in the same emotional cycle? The answer lies in a phenomenon called neural reinforcement through emotional repetition. Simply put, the more you think about something, the stronger that mental connection becomes. It's like walking the same dirt path every day. With each step, the trail becomes more defined, easier to follow. And over time, it feels almost automatic to go down that path, even when there's an entire field of new possibilities all around you. The problem is that the path you're reinforcing mentally is filled with pain, guilt, regret, or shame. And the more you repeat these thoughts, the more your brain starts believing this is your normal route. It begins accessing that emotional state with less and less external trigger. Sometimes, just a song, a casual conversation, an old photo, or even a smell can pull you right back into that mental state of suffering. And worse, the more you try to force your mind to forget, the more it insists on remembering. Why? Because the human brain doesn't handle the command, "Don't think," very well. If I tell you right now, "Don't think of a pink elephant," what's the first image that pops into your mind? Exactly, a pink elephant. This is the paradox of mental control. The more effort you put into blocking a thought, the more present it becomes. Psychology calls this the rebound effect. And there's more. Beyond the rebound effect, there's something called selective attention bias. When you're emotionally tied to a past mistake, your mind starts filtering your current reality in a distorted way. You begin interpreting today's events through the same lens of past pain. Small mistakes you make now seem huge, because your brain is still reacting to what happened yesterday. This cycle, unfortunately, is fueled by your own internal dialogue. Phrases like, "I always mess things up," "I'll never learn," "This only happens to me." These generalizations create a toxic inner narrative that reinforces the identity of someone who fails, regrets, and can't change. But there's a turning point, the moment you decide to observe this process with more awareness. Instead of automatically getting swept away by these thoughts, you can start adopting the mindset of a mental witness. This means watching your thoughts as if you're an outsider observing them. Without identifying with them. Without believing that everything your mind says is an absolute truth. Here's a simple but powerful exercise. Next time a repetitive thought comes up, pause for a moment and ask yourself, is this thought helping me or hurting me? Is it bringing me closer to the person I want to become, or pulling me further away? This small pause is already enough to interrupt the automatic cycle. Because every time you observe a thought without reacting to it, you start to weaken that emotional path that's been keeping you trapped. Another key step is to replace destructive questions with constructive ones. Instead of asking, "Why did I do that?" try asking, "What can I learn from this that I haven't learned yet?" This shift in focus is the beginning of emotional reprogramming. In the next part, we'll talk about how to create new mental paths, using concrete emotional habit change practices, so you can finally start breaking free from this cycle and begin building a present filled with more lightness, acceptance, and purpose. Because the past already happened. What you can transform now is the way you choose to remember it. How to redirect your mind and create new thought pathways. Now that you understand how emotional repetition strengthens negative thoughts and how selective attention distorts your perception, it's time for the most important step of this journey, learning how to redirect your mind. Yes, breaking free from this cycle of suffering isn't just about pure willpower. It's about training. Re-educating your mind is like strengthening a muscle that has been weakened for years. It takes patience, consistency, and most importantly, kindness toward yourself. The first practical step is developing what psychology calls mindfulness, or full awareness. Before you think this sounds complicated or too spiritual, let's simplify it. Mindfulness simply means noticing when your mind starts drifting back to the past, and consciously bringing it back to the present. Most people spend the day on autopilot, not even realizing they're ruminating over negative thoughts. So the exercise begins like this: every time you catch yourself replaying what went wrong, stop and take a deep breath. 3 slow, deep breaths. During those breaths, mentally say, "This is just a thought. I can choose to let it pass." It may seem too simple, but it's incredibly effective. Because what feeds the cycle of guilt and rumination is the lack of awareness that you're stuck in it. After this conscious pause, it's time to redirect your attention to something constructive. This doesn't mean pretending the problem never existed, but rather choosing to invest energy in thoughts that strengthen you. Here are some practical strategies. Focused gratitude practice. Take a notebook and, every day, write down 3 things that went well in the past 24 hours. They don't have to be major events. It could be as simple as enjoying a good cup of coffee, receiving a message from someone, or having a peaceful moment. This exercise trains your brain to focus on what's working. Small positive actions. Instead of waiting for a huge emotional transformation, start with small daily gestures that signal to your mind that you're entering a new cycle. Make your bed. Drink water. Take a 5-minute walk while paying attention to each step. Every microconscious action is a new step away from the old emotional track. Cognitive reframing. Every time a negative thought arises, ask yourself, is there another way to look at this? If you think, I failed, try reframing it as, I learned what doesn't work, or I survived that, and I'm here to try again. This simple shift in perspective changes the emotional impact of the thought. Present moment anchoring. Use objects or daily rituals as anchors to the present moment. It could be a stone you carry in your pocket, a rubber band on your wrist, or a simple reminder on your phone that pops up with the message, come back to now. Over time, these practices will create new neural pathways. Your brain will begin to understand that instead of spending energy on regrets, it can focus on what's within your control today. Another powerful strategy is to work on self-compassion. Many people stuck in the past carry an extremely harsh and critical inner dialogue. They talk to themselves in a way they would never speak to a friend. So start asking yourself, if my best friend were going through this, what would I say to them? Now, offer those same words to yourself. It might feel strange at first, but it makes a huge difference. And don't forget one important detail, breaking free from the rumination cycle is a process. Don't expect a magical cure overnight. There will be setbacks. The thoughts will try to come back. But now, you have tools. You have awareness. And with each passing day, you'll get better at interrupting the cycle before it consumes you. In the next part, we'll talk about how to turn these practices into lasting habits, creating a more resilient and optimistic mindset over the long term. Because you deserve to live with more lightness. And that choice starts now. Transforming the cycle of guilt into learning, the power of reinterpretation. Now that you've started to notice your mental patterns, interrupt the cycle of negative thoughts, and adopt small practices to redirect your focus, it's time to take an even more important step, transforming what once caused you pain into real learning. Yes, it is possible to look at past mistakes with new eyes. Not as an unyielding judge, but as a learner in progress. One of the most powerful tools for this is cognitive reinterpretation. It consists of giving new meaning to events that marked you negatively. It's not about making excuses or pretending everything was perfect, but recognizing that every experience, no matter how painful, carries a lesson. Ask yourself now, what did I learn from this situation? What did it teach me about myself, about others, about life? Often, what seemed like a great failure was actually a disguised process of strengthening. How many people you admire today went through tough times before finding their own path? Great leaders, writers, entrepreneurs, artists, almost all have stories of falling, regret, and overcoming. But for this transformation to happen, you need to step out of the victim role and assume the role of protagonist in your own story. This means telling yourself, okay, this happened. It hurt. But now I choose what to do with that pain. Here comes a fundamental concept in positive psychology, emotional resilience. Being resilient doesn't mean ignoring the pain, nor pretending everything is okay when it's not. It means recognizing the pain, processing it, and then deciding to grow from it. One practice that can help you a lot in this process is the emotional timeline exercise. Take a piece of paper and draw a straight line. On one side, mark the event that causes you suffering. On the other end, mark the present moment. Now, between these 2 points, write down everything you've lived, learned, or achieved since then. Include even the small victories. This simple visualization helps the mind realize that your life is not limited to the moment of error. You moved forward, grew, and matured. Even if you still carry scars, they are part of your emotional construction. Another important technique is radical acceptance. This means stopping the fight against the fact that the past happened. It doesn't mean agreeing with or liking what happened, but accepting that it is already part of your story, and from this point on, you have the power to choose. Repeat mentally. I cannot change what happened, but I can change the way I choose to remember and react to it. And whenever the thought returns, try this small internal mantra. Today, I choose to free myself from this cycle. Of course, there will be days when the old pain wants to come back. Moments of emotional fragility are natural. But remember, every time you choose to respond differently, you are reprogramming your brain. You are creating new neural connections. You are opening new paths within yourself. Over time, what once was a trigger of suffering becomes a reminder of strength. You begin to look back not with weight, but with gratitude for your own journey. Because the truth is, the past holds no power over you unless you keep giving it that power. In the next and final part, we will talk about how to consolidate this new cycle of thoughts and how to create a future-focused mindset, so you can live with more lightness, presence, and above all, emotional freedom. Because that's what you deserve, a peaceful mind and a heart in motion. Building a future mindset, freedom beyond the past. You have already traveled an important path, you understood the cycle of thoughts that keep you trapped in the past, learned how to interrupt them, redirect your mind, and transform suffering into learning. Now it's time to look toward the future, not as a scary unknown, but as a blank canvas ready to be painted by you. The emotional freedom you seek begins when you decide not to be a prisoner of old stories anymore. When you choose, every day, to build a new narrative, lighter, more conscious, and more authentic. But how do you do this in practice? First, it's essential to understand that your mind is fertile ground for whatever you plant. If you keep sowing doubts, fears, and regrets, you will harvest more of the same. But if, on the contrary, you cultivate thoughts of hope, acceptance, and purpose, you will start creating a different future. A powerful exercise for this is creative visualization. Set aside a few minutes each day to imagine what your life would be like if you were already free from the weight of the past. Visualize the sensations, actions, feelings, and achievements. Feel this reality as if it were already present. This practice is not magic, but it activates areas of the brain linked to motivation and creation. It helps you program your mind for what you want to attract and live. Additionally, it's important to develop the habit of living in the present with purpose. Living here and now, without being a slave to what was or what might be, is the key to inner peace. This doesn't mean ignoring planning, but rather avoiding the mental prison that rumination causes. Cultivate the practice of mindfulness during your daily tasks, observe your breathing, feel the texture of objects, listen to the sounds around you, savor your food. Every moment lived with presence is a victory against the cycle of anxiety and regret. And when thoughts about the past come, because they will, and that's normal, remember what you've learned, you have the power to choose your reaction. You can welcome the thought, observe it without judgment, and let it pass like a cloud crossing the sky. Finally, seek support when you need it. Talking to friends, family, or even professionals can be an enormous support to strengthen this new mindset. You are not alone on this journey. Many go through this process and find, along the way, an unexpected strength, the ability to reinvent themselves, to forgive themselves, and to love themselves. So, take a deep breath and celebrate how far you've already come. Every step, every small change, is a step toward freedom. And that freedom starts within you. Now, ask yourself, what future do I choose to build from today? The answer lies in your mind, in your heart, in your courage. And life can finally begin to flow lightly, with purpose and peace. If this content was helpful to you, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to receive upcoming materials. Thank you for your company, and see you next time.